into the dust.
Okay, continuing on from last week, there were just way too many archaeological discoveries to finish in one segment, so to round out the top 10, this week I'm adding an additional 5. And once again, if you think I've left something out or made an error, let me know in the comments below. Number 6, an archaeological pot of gold, literally. So in archaeology, we're always talking about the learnings being the real treasure. Hence, we spend a lot of time investigating microscopic soil sediments or looking at stains in the ground to see what we can learn from them. But in some cases, we do really find treasure, and ain't nothing wrong with that. Well, that's just what happened at the ancient city of Nodion in present-day Turkey. I'm assuming it's Nodion and not Notion. In any event, this was a Greek settlement that was first mentioned by the Greek historian Herodotus in the 5th century BC, so it is an ancient settlement. Archaeologists were digging beneath an ancient house when they came upon a pot of ancient gold coins in the foundation. The coins, known as darics, named after the Persian Emperor Darius, depict an archer crouching ready for battle. And these came from a tumultuous time period in which this particular bit of real estate, this city of Nodion, was the scene of constant fighting between the Greeks and Persians. As these coins date from the earliest period of coinage, at least in the West, money was not yet much in circulation at this time. So these particular coins were minted especially to pay off mercenaries in the service of the Persians, and many of those mercenaries were actually Greeks.
Your friend is quite a mercenary. I wonder if he really cares about anything. Or anybody.
And mercenaries were not exactly known for their purity of motivations.
We're not just doing this for money. We're doing it for a load of money.
A single coin was said to represent 1 month's wages, so this hoard would have been left over from a very prolific soldier. Why would he have left it behind? Well, from 430 to 427, the Greeks finally wrested control of the city from the Persians and their allies, who all fled or were killed, expelled, or enslaved.
Get out of here, man. You know what I'm saying?
So this unfortunate mercenary very likely met an untimely end or was otherwise prevented from coming back to collect his hard-earned wages. Imagine the excitement of being the field archaeologist to first pull these things from the ground as you're digging through the dirt. Remember, gold doesn't tarnish, so these coins probably didn't look that different from the day they were put in there. The findings help corroborate the historical record and give better insight into the chronology of this early coinage. Number 7, Cleopatra's real face. Cleopatra of Egypt is probably one of the most recognizable faces in the world, but ironically, nobody knows what she really looked like. This is what most people think of when they think of Cleopatra, but that isn't her, that's Elizabeth Taylor. Modern Hollywood wants you to think she looked like this, but definitely not. The real Cleopatra was of Greek Macedonian descent, so she definitely would not have appeared sub-Saharan African. In fact, she was perhaps the only member of her whole dynasty to even bother to learn the local language of Egyptian. Images made during her life or soon after her death were created in far-flung places and were probably not created from real-life images of her. Various busts around the Roman and Greek world make her appear like any other classical women and were probably just the artist's interpretations. Many of them cannot even be definitively attributed to Cleopatra anyway. The same goes for paintings too. These probable images of her came from Pompeii and Herculaneum, preserved by the volcano that kept those cities as time capsules. Coins from around the Mediterranean depict Cleopatra, but in general, these are not necessarily reliable likenesses, and in this case, for Cleopatra's sake, let's hope not. And finally, as she was technically Queen of Egypt, Egyptian depictions on temples, tablets, and such make her appear much more native. Well, a new find in Egypt offers the possibility of getting to the bottom of the queen's real likeness at last, although like everything surrounding Cleopatra, there is a lot of contention on this point. A joint Egyptian-Dominican team has been excavating at an old temple complex at Taposiris Magna, the great tomb of Osiris, just west of Alexandria. And while parts of the site are now underwater, archaeologists have uncovered a necropolis that dates to Cleopatra's time, with remnants of high-status burial items, including lots of pottery, a scarab amulet, and a hoard of 337 coins, many depicting Cleopatra's likeness. It's difficult to say because this, like most ancient Egyptian sites, has long been looted and disturbed. But Dr. Kathleen Martinez, who's been seeking Cleopatra's tomb for the last 20 years, believes that a part of the site, which is beneath where the lighthouse of Osiris once stood, is in fact Queen Cleopatra's final resting place. And one of the things that makes her think this is this marble bust that was found of a woman bearing the royal diadem that Kathleen Martinez believes is Cleopatra.
Is this some kind of bust?
And since it was buried with her, it probably would be a more accurate depiction of Cleopatra than images made from people far away who never met the queen. However, clearly it is not up to the skill level of some of the other great artistic depictions we have of Cleopatra. So even if it is sort of the real deal, it doesn't actually give us too great an idea of what she really looked like. Other archaeologists disagree, however, most notably Diva and former Minister of Tourism and Antiquities Zahi Hawass, who believes the bust dates to a slightly later time and depicts a Roman woman. Other archaeologists think it is a princess from Cleopatra's dynasty, but not actually Cleopatra. The site is still being excavated, but in the absence of other clues, we'll just reserve our judgment and let the archaeologists fight it out. Number 8. Deciphering a Herculaneum scroll. Although a lot of the writings of classical philosophers like Socrates, Aristotle, and Plutarch have survived by being recopied over the years, as at that time most writing was done on papyrus, a lot of the originals didn't survive, and most ancient books, in fact, were lost to time. In fact, we've identified a lot of works that have been lost because they're mentioned in other known works, but the copies of them no longer survive. We can call these the known unknowns. Just imagine for a second how many unknown unknowns there are. Works that have been lost and are not referenced in other surviving works.
There are things we know we know. We also know there are known unknowns. That is to say, we know there are some things we do not know.
Moreover, a lot of the ancient libraries were destroyed, very notably the Great Library of Alexandria, which was largely destroyed in fires caused by a battle between Julius Caesar and Cleopatra's brother Ptolemy XIV during their civil war in 48 BC. Whatever survived, because it's believed that parts of the library did, would have been destroyed in subsequent invasions, the first by Emperor Aurelian in 272 AD, or by Diocletian in 297 AD. Well, another of these great libraries was actually one belonging to Julius Caesar's father-in-law in Herculaneum, which of course was destroyed by the eruption of Vesuvius in 79 AD. And as we know, that volcanic eruption was actually great for preserving certain things, notably frescoes and even people. Hence in archaeology, we have the term the Pompeii effect. However, preserving papyrus, not so much. Well, Julius Caesar's father-in-law's house became known as the House of Papyri due to the 1,785 papyrus scrolls there. However, thanks to the volcano, the contents of these could only be guessed at until the recent application of new technology. Computer scientist and professor Brent Seales made this his life's work in 2005. However, imaging technology and computing were just not up to snuff to get the job done. But as imaging techniques have vastly improved in recent years, by 2015, X-ray tomography was actually able to digitally unwrap the scrolls. However, the problem was that the ink on that scrolls had a density that was too similar to that of the underlying paper, and therefore the tomography process could not adequately distinguish it. But by this time, of course, we'd made great strides in AI, so Seales thought to give that a try. So in 2022, a number of Silicon Valley tycoons who were interested in this issue raised millions of dollars to run a contest to decipher the scrolls called the Vesuvius Challenge. In it, contestants competed for prize money by deciphering bits of the text using their own self-designed AI programs. Hey, there's nothing to solve a problem like the profit motive, right? In several rounds of competition, various teams won some of the prize money by moving the ball forward a little bit. However, last year, a team from the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology, led by alumnus Julian Schilliger, made a major breakthrough by transcribing 4 full passages with at least 85% readability. The translated text revealed previously unknown philosophical works which discuss the senses and pleasure, including music, the taste of capers, and the color purple, and this was thousands of years before Oprah got into the act. Clearly, the future is bright for recovering a lot of lost ancient philosophical and other works, known and unknown. Number 9, bread at Çatalhöyük. Coming from New York, I'm used to bakeries famous for their centuries-old sourdough starters. In fact, just like banana bread recipes, these have kind of been a thing online for some time. But a new discovery puts all of that to shame. In fact, we're talking about bread from 6,600 BC, so over 8,600 years old, long before Mr. Atkins ever dreamed up a low-carb diet.
Cindy, can you leave some for us? I thought you were trying to lose weight.
Lay off, starving.
So we're going to Turkey to visit one of the most iconic and amazing archaeological sites of all time, Çatalhöyük. Now, we could spend hours and hours discussing Çatalhöyük because, quite frankly, it is one of the most weird, astounding, and complicated sites ever excavated, which it has been continually since its discovery in the 1960s. However, the short version is it's probably the oldest truly urban center ever found, as it's essentially a giant apartment building with units built and renovated one on top of the other, which were accessible only through ladders in the ceiling, not traditional doors. The site was occupied for about 1,500 years from approximately 7,100 to 5,600 BC, so over 9,000 years ago it began. And some of the key features of living at Çatalhöyük were fleshy female goddess figurines, animal murals, and a slight obsession with bullhorn wall decorations. Anyway, excavations are ongoing, and last year, in a part of the site known as Mekan 66, in a hearth, an oven, which a lot of the houses had, amongst peas and wheat and barley and other things you'd find in an oven, was what archaeologists described as a palm-size spongy residue. Now, it might look like a turd, but testing revealed that this was actually a lump of unbaked but fermented dough, which was essentially intended to be a Stone Age dinner roll. And what's more, it was radiocarbon dated to 8,600 years ago, making it the oldest piece of intact bread ever found. And I say intact because charred bits of breadcrumbs were found in an oven from a site in present-day Jordan that dated back 14,000 years. So archaeologists know that bread predated this, but this piece at Çatalhöyük is the oldest piece of bread that's identifiable as such to the naked eye. So, score that as another first for Çatalhöyük. Number 10, Cloggs Cave, Australia. So on this channel, we've discussed indigenous archaeology, which essentially allows indigenous groups to take a more active role in the archaeology of their own cultures, histories, and ancestors, essentially an inversion of archaeology's often colonial roots. And indigenous archaeology is on the march. One place that has made a real turnaround is Australia, where the Aboriginal sacred and historic sites were often destroyed in development, and the archaeology of these places was often done without the input of local indigenous groups. However, that's all changed, as nowadays many of these excavations are done in close coordination with the Aboriginal people. And now we're going to discuss an exciting find on one such project. In the Australian state of Victoria, recent excavations led by Monash University in conjunction with the Gunai-Kurnai Land and Waters Aboriginal Corporation, essentially an Aboriginal management authority, have established an indigenous religious practice which goes back 10,000 years. The site was Cloggs Cave, and this had actually been excavated previously, but without the collaboration of the Gunai-Kurnai people. Caves like this generally did not serve as dwellings, but essentially secluded retreats where Aboriginal medicine men and women, known as Mulla Mulung, could perform certain rituals. And you can take a drink. Deep in this cave, archaeologists uncovered a small hearth that previous excavations had missed, and in this fireplace they found charred sticks like this one here. Radiocarbon dating established the sticks as 11 to 12,000 years old, and other tests subsequently identified the wood as casuarina wood, which had been burned at low temperatures, in fact enough so that residues of animal fat on the surface survived.
Weird, weird.
It sounds weird, but actually not really, because ethnographic studies done by Alfred Howitt in the 1850s describe ceremonies using sticks just like this one, which are known as ritual sticks. Howitt described the Mulla Mulung shamans smearing the so-called magic throwing sticks, called murawan, with fats and other fluids. This was done to call down either harm or fortune as the practitioner wished, and was both feared and respected by the Gunai-Kurnai people. So this research essentially establishes a cultural practice first documented in the 19th century as going back as long as 12,000 years, testifying to the longevity of the Gunai-Kurnai people and their culture in this region. This is obviously super meaningful to the Aboriginal community and should hopefully go a long way in building trust between Indigenous people and archaeologists in Australia and maybe even beyond. And that is the power of Indigenous archaeology. All right, well, that's it for the Archaeological Year 2024 in review. Here's hoping for an even better 2025 of amazing discoveries. Hey, if you like what you heard, give me that thumbs up below, hit that bell to subscribe, or if you want to support more independent archaeology content, consider contributing to my Patreon, where you can enjoy some exclusive members-only benefits and other goodies. Until the next dig.